My name is Anne-Marie Wright, and I am the co-founder and director of YouAreUNLTD, a purpose-driven organization with a vision to help people, no matter what their circumstances, to age powerfully. We've been very proud partners with AgeWell since 2017. I'm joined by 4 global experts and industry thought leaders to discuss the role Canada could play in the emerging longevity economy and how we can leverage our successes in age tech to drive economic growth across a vast global ecosystem. Please help me welcome Dr. Alex Mihailidis, who is in Toronto with us, Kate Batz, who's the Managing Director of Longevity Capital, who is in San Francisco, Franco Cortese, who is a partner with Longevity Capital and a Director of Aging Analytics, who is in the Niagara region of Ontario, Canada, and Tina Woods, who's the CEO of Collider Health, who is coming to us today from London in the UK. A few reminders before we begin. This presentation will be recorded, like all of them, and will be made on the AgeWell YouTube channel and event site. We will have Q&As in this session, and I want to give a shout out to both Michael and Sam, who are helping us behind the scenes to collect the many questions we hope we'll get today. And there will be chat that you can share your thoughts, comments, resources on that also will be monitored by Michael and Sam throughout. So let us begin. We're experiencing a revolution in aging, thanks to new innovations, technology, breakthroughs in aging science and medicine that are extending lives and improving the health of older people. An ever-growing number of the world's brightest, boldest, most forward-looking economists, scholars, scientists, innovators, disruptors, and entrepreneurs have recognized the enormous potential these advances in the technology of aging represent, not only for significantly extending lifespans, but for how it can and will create jobs and stimulate economic growth. But despite Canada's ranking as the 6th largest investor in longevity advancements globally, our longevity sector still remains a well-kept secret, which prompts the question, are we taking the aging revolution seriously enough to compete in it, let alone lead it? Let's begin with Dr. Alex Mihailidis, who will set the stage for us. Dr. Mihailidis is the Scientific Director and CEO of AgeWell. He is also the Associate Vice President for International Partnerships at the University of Toronto and a professor in the Department of Occupational Science and Occupational Therapy in the Institute of Biomaterials and Biomedical Engineering with a cross appointment in the Department of Computer Science. Dr. Mihailidis has also been conducting research in the field of technology and environments to support older adults for the past 17 years. Welcome, Alex.
Great, thank you, Anne-Marie. So let me start off by talking a little bit about age tech itself and what is age tech. And within AgeWell itself, and I think what we're seeing around the world, people are taking a very broad perspective when it comes to age tech. You know, age tech and technologies for older people, well, really anyone who's aging can be anything from eyeglasses, hearing aids, walkers, mobility devices to more quote unquote high tech solutions such as smart home systems, robotics, wearable sensors, etc. AgeWell itself is a national network here in Canada that is trying to support the development of the age tech sector right from the ground up. That is looking at supporting research and development across the country, to taking those technologies that have been developed in the research labs and move them towards commercialization and knowledge translation. We also have invested significantly in the entrepreneurship space and supporting 40 plus startups in this area. And again, really trying to not only fill the pipeline with respect to new solutions that will hopefully have an impact in supporting people as they age, but also taking those solutions that are ready to go and helping to implement them moving forward. So with that, AgeWell was established by our federal government about 8 years ago now, with the simple, well, relatively simple goal of establishing Canada as the world leader in age tech. And this started from a recognition that Canada, in the area of aging research and technology and aging, really was falling behind. And as Anne-Marie said, while Canada, talked a big game about supporting our seniors, honestly, and I can say this as a researcher in the field, we weren't really taking it all that seriously, as Anne-Marie put it. And we weren't taken seriously in terms of the investments that had to go in, and in terms of the resources that were required for anyone from our academics to our entrepreneurs to our CEOs of large companies, really to take this problem seriously and to move solutions forward. And so because of that, AgeWell really took that task on. And the thing I want to really stress is AgeWell is not working in a vacuum. None of our researchers, even though we have 1,000+ researchers and trainees across 40+ universities and over 400 partners, the key thing there is we're not all working in a vacuum. That one of the goals in order to overcome the obstacles that existed in Canada and still exist to this day, I would say, is people getting out of those silos that they're so comfortable working in and working together in order to come up with holistic solutions that truly are needed to support older people and their caregivers. And that's one piece we never want to forget, that age tech is not just for the senior, but it's also for the family members, the caregivers, the clinicians who are also supporting them as well. Perhaps the final thing I'll mention, because I don't want to take up too much time here, I'd rather get to some questions and discussion, is this pandemic has been, obviously an awful thing around the world, and especially for our seniors, and especially shining a light on the massive gaps that we have in care of seniors in long-term care homes, in the community, within their own homes, and across the entire spectrum of care. And and we will probably touch upon this later on, I'm sure, knowing Anne-Marie, that the pandemic, again, while devastating, did also open some opportunities for the age tech sector, and especially for Canada to lead in this area. And that is why AgeWell and all of our partners are expanding our scope. We're looking at these new opportunities of where we can fill gaps, and looking at technology not just for supporting, again, quote unquote, healthy older people, but also those who are truly in need of supportive care and services, whether it's a few hours a day or 24/7. And so, having said all that, in terms of back to the original question, what can Canada do, and can Canada succeed in this area? Absolutely, we can succeed. Absolutely, we can become a world leader, but we need to work with our partners within and outside of Canada in order to do so. And so I'm excited to hear the perspectives of Tina, Franco, and Kate from their perspectives in their respective countries and regions as well, in order to see how Canada can work with the United States and the UK in particular in order to advance the age tech agenda. So I'll stop there. Thank you, Anne-Marie.
No, thank you so much, Alex, for setting the stage that way. So the good news, I think, is that we feel that Canada can be very successful in taking a leadership role on the global stage as it relates to age tech. I'm going to hold some of the questions till to the end, because I think it's important that we hear from our panelists who are going to feed us important information. So I'm going to now welcome Kate Batz and Franco Cortese, who will provide their perspectives on the global longevity economy. And as you're going to learn, these two folks have been working on the global stage as it relates to understanding this longevity economy, which is not language that is always well understood or well embraced. Importantly, they're going to talk to us about where AgeTech can fit into this burgeoning longevity economy as well. So let me first introduce Kate Batz, who is a managing partner at Longevity Capital, and as well as a director of strategy and business development at Deep Knowledge Ventures, Aging Analytics Agency, and Deep Knowledge Analytics. She's an experienced corporate attorney by background, able to practice in a number of different countries, but was compelled by the paradigm shifting advances in science and technology in the fields of aging and on longevity to enthusiastically join Deep Knowledge Ventures Group. Kate is a contributor also to the book Longevity Industry 1.0, defining the biggest and most complex industry in human history. Details of that book, in fact, are on the WAHOVA, in the WAHOVA idea space for you to reference. Her colleague Franco is a director of, pardon me, Aging Analytics Agency, the longevity-focused analytical subsidiary of Deep Knowledge Group. He currently serves as a supporting partner of the UK All-Party Parliamentary Group for Longevity, which we'll be hearing about from Tina Woods shortly, and an official member of the United Nations NGO Committee on Aging. So I now give you Kate and Franco.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you, Anne-Marie.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and it's an honor to be here, Anne-Marie. Thank you. So, Franco, I'll let you start with the longevity economy, and I will add my color to that.
Sure. So I don't know how familiar our audience members are with different definitional terms like aging and longevity, but I think it's important to realize that aging and longevity are two sides of the same coin and constitute the intersection of two opposing trends. On the one hand, demographic aging, denoting the ongoing increase in the proportion of elderly individuals in a given population, which in Canada is actually starker than many may realize, with the proportion of the elderly projected to constitute 25% of the population by the year 2036, with obvious consequences for Canada's dependency ratio. And on the other hand, developments in products, services, therapies, and policies that can enable population-level extension of health-adjusted life expectancy, or health span, and quality-adjusted life years. I would say that in terms of the right language to use, in terms of an emphasis over aging versus longevity, any such language should encompass, of course, both of these trends, but certainly from a policy and endpoints perspective, should err towards longevity rather than aging, because there's a pressing need to shift from palliative and symptomatic approaches to neutralizing the economic burden of demographic aging and towards approaches that try and leverage and realize the massive socioeconomic opportunity of longevity itself and longevity industrialization, which represents not just a solution to a cost-associated problem, aka aging population, but also a massive potential source of socioeconomic growth, development, and stabilization in its own right. Or as I'm sure Tina will say during her remarks, a shift from the deficit model of aging towards the asset model of longevity. And this is about more than just semantics and taxonomic preference, I should add, because the use of this language underlies real-world developmental endpoints and public perception of the motivation behind any strategies that are looking to combat aging or work within the intersection of these trends. An age-friendly city can be considered as a place that's comfortable to retire, whereas a longevity-friendly city is a more efficient environment to maximize health span and well span over extended periods of healthy longevity. So it's a more important distinction than some may realize.
And I will also add that the definition of longevity economy itself has been introduced by a number of groups. Personally, I like the one by Oxford Economics, which defines it as a sum of all economic activity of people aged 50 plus, which includes both the direct purchasing activities as well as other economic activities that this generates. Today, there's over 1 billion people in retirement, so it's we like to say that's enough to form a 7th continent. And the current longevity economy size is at 25 billion, projected to grow to 25 trillion, projected to go to 33 trillion by 2026. And it comprises approximately 20% of global GDP. This situation is affected a lot by the elderly care, which is supported by technological advancements in AI, digital technologies, and others. Also, of course, speaking of aging and longevity, we always define longevity as living healthier for longer, or health span. So, and if we live healthier for longer, hopefully, that inevitably will affect our financial planning. So we think that the longevity financial industry both presents huge opportunities in that regard, because you need to have corresponding financial planning, financial products, etc.
Well said, Kate. One of the questions that was circulated in advance of this panel, which I found interesting, remarked on how aging is seen as a system of cost in many countries, and basically how should we think differently about this, etc. Reinforcing the taxonomic divide that I commented on in my opening remarks. It's as much about mitigating cost as it is creating untapped channels for economic growth and stability, irrespective of longevity industrialization's potentials to mitigate existing costs. And I reiterate this because I think it's a massively important distinction. I also think it's important to note that longevity is rather uniquely poised at the intersection of many areas of pressing national concern. It's again not just about mitigating the economic shortfall of a growth in the elderly portion of the population. It's a massive opportunity to prolong the period in which individuals are net positive contributors to economies, including Canada's, and also constitutes a rapidly growing and rather lucrative business in and of itself, and one which, if Canada were able to establish certain competitive advantages and unique angles of development, such as an emphasis on age tech, as Alex mentioned, could draw in large volumes of investment from abroad. Aside from this, however, these economic implications, all of these more material and practical factors are, of course, dwarfed by the fact that it constitutes one of the most direct and obvious means of improving the health, happiness, and quality of life of Canadian citizens across the life cycle, with rather massive societal and humanitarian implications.
I will also add that the economic impact of the aging society, and even the terms applied to aging cohort sometimes is referred to as silver tsunami, which I don't think is positive. So you can call it age wave or longevity cohort or any other term. But often there is a negative focus because it is often associated with the increased cost of healthcare. And I think it's very important to distinguish between the aging population and the less healthy population, and actually focus on aging better. Recently, this summer, there was an excellent article in the Nature magazine, which was called "The Economic Value of Targeting Aging." And it says that if you focus on how we age, as opposed to morbidities, this actually will have an enormous positive economic impact. And the number that was quoted there said that the additionally a year of increased life expectancy with a focus on health span in the United States would result in 38 trillion economic boost. So I think that this is a pretty impressive number, and this is the direction we need to follow.
I really like very much the way that you've both laid out the concept of aging is not a cost, it's an economic driver. So it'd be very helpful, based on a lot of the global research you've done, is how do we actually define this thing called the longevity industry? What sectors are in it? Who should be paying attention to it? Who's investing in it so far? And what can Canada learn from that?
Well, Franco is behind the definition of, together with our managing partner, Dmitry Kaminsky, so I'll let him start here.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So, most people would define the longevity economy as the sum of economic activity being driven by or implicated in the decisions of those 50 plus. But we take a somewhat broader view of that, including not just that, but also basically any product, services, policies, technologies, etc., that have an impact on health span and wealth span. And we're also a little bit, let's say, lifestyle agnostic in this regard. So rather than cutting it off and focusing just on the elderly, we think that middle-aged individuals would also constitute, a stakeholder in this, especially given the increasing proportion of middle-aged individuals expecting to live 100 plus year lifespans. From a broader perspective, a lot of people also focus in on biomedical and strictly healthcare related sectors, but we consider it to cross not just that, but also tech sectors, of course, AgeTech and finance sectors. So yeah, our definition is a little bit more inclusive than others, but we think that's for the better.
Right.
Did you have any comments with regards to investors and investment trends, etc.?
Well, I also wanted to first add that thanks to the advancements in medicine, we all live longer these days. Also, we have a lot more age-related diseases correspondingly. So, and in terms of what can be done now, not just to the existing older population, it's very important to address and implement the preventive medicine measures. So that's another big section of our definition of longevity industry, which, as Franco mentioned, includes the geroscience R&D, preventive medicine, age tech, and the financial industry. And it's good to see, speaking of investments, that there are now a number of investment funds that are exclusively focused on health span. United States leads this trend, but Canada also, shows lots of promising signs as well. Like, for instance, it placed third in terms of being a country with the most longevity-focused companies. We don't have time today, I know, but I invite everyone to read our open access analytical report that's called Longevity Investment Digest, which provides the analytics. So there's a lot of good positive developments in terms of investments as well.
Yeah. Do you know what, Kate, it would be very helpful if you could just give a really quick snapshot of where those investments are going. We certainly see from YouAreUNLTD a number of these funds coming into the market. 3 years ago, they didn't exist. Like, where's the money going? There's that expression, and that where the money goes, the energy flows too.
Well, if as far as I remember, let's say if we take Canada, there are three leading sectors. Number one is preventive medicine. I think it's about 25%, and it's followed by telemedicine. And of course, last year's, and this year's pandemic emphasized the importance of telemedicine, as well as mental health solutions. I also believe, in terms of the lucrative sectors, that AI for longevity is another emerging trend, and that's to be reckoned with as well.
Right. And I know we're going to get to Tina in a moment. I'm going to ask one final question of the both of you, and then we're going to go over to Tina, which is that, just again, based on the very fine global work that your company does, what are the evolving policy changes, and are some of the emerging frameworks that you're starting to see globally? Tina is actually going to talk about one of them that are actually servicing the needs of an aging population.
Well, I think that global leaders are starting to really respond to the existing pressing need of aging population. And there is no single country that has a perfect strategy, but the fact that there is a shift in this direction, including APPG for longevity that Tina will mention, there's a number of other good positive developments globally. In Canada also, if you take it as an example, there is it was one of the global leaders that actually was the first one to introduce the AI strategy, which is very important. So I think a lot of things are in the work. Franco, do you have anything to add? I know you're a specialist on the policy measures.
Yeah, I would say that the UK serves as an excellent example, especially from a governmental will and commitment standpoint. Of course, it chose aging population as one of its 4 industrial challenges. It created a close to £100 million industrial strategy challenge fund to support the ongoing longevity industrialization within its borders. And most importantly, it made a commitment to add 5 extra years of healthy lifespan to its population by the year 2035. So of all countries, yes, there are strengths and weaknesses all over the place, but the UK serves as an excellent example. And I might add here that now would be the time for Canada to step up and try and do something similar. The preliminary sector distribution numbers that Kate mentioned come from an ongoing special case study that we're actually conducting on the Canadian longevity ecosystem in coordination with Canadian Longevity Association, a nonprofit that we've worked with before and that we're deepening relations with. And that report really evidences the fact that Canada is at a tipping point in terms of having a critical mass of national assets that could be put forth and used to support such a strategy. Certainly a sufficient number of national assets to make such a government-led strategy make sense. One that, like the UK longevity industrial strategy, that borrows from international best practices, leans into existing strengths and assets, seeks international cooperation rather than siloed competition, uses tangible metrics for tracking progress, measuring execution of its plan, and adjusting in the face of missed milestones, etc., which emphasizes expert consultation and cross-sector dialogue, and prioritizes market-ready sectors like preventive medicine, early diagnostics, AI in healthcare, and age tech to support maximum short-term impact on population health and quality of life, while also supporting earlier stage biomedical sectors that will bear the fruit of longer-term social dividends down the road and carry forth the momentum of those early stage impacts. And it's quite lucky that Canada has a large proportion of companies operating in those sectors, which are highly market ready and which could have high levels of near-term social impact, like age tech, like preventive medicine, like AI for longevity, etc.
Right. Thank you so much, Franco. I want to come back and talk a little bit about those Canadian companies that are what I call beacons. But I think, Tina, that was a rather perfect introduction to what I know you're going to share. So Tina Woods is here to provide an international perspective, in fact, on how the UK turned a quote unquote problem of aging into one of the most promising opportunities, we believe, of the 21st century. Tina is a social entrepreneur who brings diverse stakeholders together to address system changes needed to improve health for all. She is the founder and CEO of Collider Health. Tina is also the director of the UK All-Party Parliamentary Group for Longevity, details of which Franco and Kate have scratched the surface on, but which Tina is going to share with us today. She's written a book called Live Longer with AI, How Artificial Intelligence is Helping Us Extend Our Health Spans and Live Better Too. This was published in October 2020, is also on the WAHOVA site if you'd like to reference that. I've had the pleasure of meeting Tina in the past, and I'm going to tell her secret today. She's Canadian, and we're very happy to have her here. So welcome, Tina.
Thank you so much for such a great introduction, and very pleased to be here. So Kate and Franco have laid out really nicely and very powerfully really how compelling and exciting, what we're seeing ahead of us in terms of the developments and advances that are really opening up the opportunity to see growing older very, very differently. And so I'm going to spend a few moments right now just to kind of take you, I guess, through the journey of really what it's been like over the past 3 years, navigating this industry, this marketplace, this economy, whatever you want to call it. But I would say it's much bigger than that. I mean, I'm really interested in seeing this as a massive opportunity for system change that is long time in coming, to move what we've got. I mean, let's face it, in the westernized world, certainly in Canada, even despite its socialized medical system like we have in the UK with the NHS, and of course we've got a very different model in the US. We have a sickness model that unfortunately is fueled by lifestyle-driven chronic diseases. It's our lifestyle, it's the wider determinants of health that they're at the root of actually some very, very uncomfortable truths about how we live and what a cost it's causing us in terms of our health. We only have to look at COVID, and certainly the UK and the USA. Canada, I'm not sure where that rates in comparison with the US and the UK, but certainly we fared worst in terms of our the impact that COVID has had on us, and that is very much down to the state of our health. So I think the whole notion of healthy aging, healthy longevity, health span, lifespan, aging, whatever you want to call it, is so rooted in this understanding of actually what is needed really to keep us in a state of good health for as long as possible, right from the moment we're born and indeed right before we're born. So I would say certainly the big lesson for me as I've navigated this landscape is just how important it is to see this as a life course issue for all of us, and how we can really stay healthier for as long as possible. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the journey with the APPG and also because of course Britain, just like I guess Canada, if you're on this cusp of a big change, certainly the UK, we've just left the EU and we're obviously grappling with what life is going to be like as global Britain, in this post-Brexit world. Obviously, we've been very hugely impacted by COVID. But really, we see this as an opportunity really to lead in the world. Of course, some of you may have read the ambitions for the UK to be the science and tech superstar in the world. We see healthy longevity as a great opportunity for that, to deliver huge dividends to society, but also commercially. So I see this from the system change and sort of approach. And I think, the APPG is a really interesting model. And I think there's been a lot of attention actually from around the world on this as a model. I'm not saying it's the best model. And certainly I can also say we've still got a lot to learn from other countries. But I know our colleagues in the US, certainly in the Far East, we were invited to Singapore not so long ago to talk about what we were doing. We were invited by the National Association of Medicine, the Global Healthy Aging Roadmap Challenge, to talk about our experience. This is a couple of years ago now in Singapore, right before COVID struck. And really, it all sort of began in 2017 when the UK decided, they published the industrial strategy. I know Franco had alluded to that, where essentially the government decided they were going to invest in some key areas, really to kind of set out the roadmap for UK to lead in certain areas. And those 4 areas were in AI and data, clean energy, mobility, and what they call the aging society. So these are the 4 areas which the UK felt needed investment, needed focus and attention. And of course, AI and data, to see it as its own silo speaks volumes, because of course it pervades everything. But now the kind of sums, I mean, when you think about the gigantic sums that are in sort of pension funds and in the city and asset management, etc. I mean, the amount of money that the government was putting forward pales in comparison to that, but it really was a significant amount of money that sort of set the flag to say, listen, this is important. But I think and I started working with the UK Research and Innovation Healthy Aging Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund, where they had earmarked 100 million out of a 300 million pot for the Aging Society to be dedicated to this strand. And even then, this was 3 years ago, they're quite focused on sort of the plus 65 population, because at that point we had a massive, and still do actually, this issue where far too many older individuals are ending up in hospitals. sort of taking up hospital beds. You'd hear lots of media stories and these very negative terms about our older populations taking up, hospital beds. And it was always phrased in this very, very negative sort of way. So there's this immediate sort of imperative to kind of deal with this and try and sort of shift this so-called burden, away out of hospitals. So it was always very negatively sort of phrased, and I was really struck by that. And I think as we've grown with the challenge, and as we set up the APBG for longevity, the task there was to say, okay, we've got this money coming in from government, but actually the goal that was set, that was an opportunity to string together what we're trying to achieve with the 4 grand challenges, which Franco mentioned, the increasing healthy life expectancy by 5 years, by 2035, while minimizing health inequalities. That was the mission that was set. But there is no strategy around how to achieve the impact. So that's what the APBG set out to do. So over the course of 9 months, we pulled together a very cross-sector, multi-stakeholder group. We really tried to think very, very boldly and ambitiously and laterally about what this could mean and what the innovations could bring. So we had business, we had science, we had public policy, we had all these different groups involved, and then published Health of the Nation strategy in February 2020. It was right after the Singapore visit, and of course COVID was just sort of simmering at the time. Singapore were kind of on red alert. We were sort of wondering how it was going to impact the UK. We launched the strategy, and then of course, sure enough, a month later, COVID struck. And what we saw when the data was coming out, we could see that, gosh, our elderly populations were being impacted most heavily. That was the original sort of take on this. But of course, as we saw more and more data, we could see that actually it was ill health, and of course our ethnic communities, and these were the groups that were really most substantially affected by COVID. So really, what it struck us then is that how important that the part of our mission, which was very, very focused on health inequalities, how important that was. And I think the really big focus now for so much of our work is sort of addressing this question. How can we you cannot have a prosperous economy and a prosperous nation when you do not have a healthy population. When you have a gap of 20 years in healthy life expectancy between your poorest and richest citizens, that is actually creating a drain on your economy. So you have to really deal with these more systemic, these wider inequalities, the wider determinants of health. So that really focused our attention, how deeply important that was. And I think that's the big message coming out of COVID, and is a big message to, I think, anyone involved in longevity and aging. And, this is really about our health, but it is also about how connected it is with the wider systemic issues in society. So that has really thrown a massive focus and a change in direction, I guess. And really everything that we're doing now is very, very focused on how we can create equitable opportunities for people across the life course to essentially close that gap, enable us to have, higher quality years for as long as possible. So we'll have, there's been a few kind of debates, with I would say the cutting edge of the sort of the longevity scientists, are very, very focused on, lifespan, getting to live to 120, 150, and all that research is really, really important. But it's about harnessing that research and really putting the focus on how can we use that research and all the wonderful things that we're seeing in AI and aging biomarkers and all the real cutting edge of that technology, how we can make sure that it really goes down and reaches, all that innovation is very much accessible to as many people as possible. So I think that's the focus. And I would say a lot of what we're doing now, so we're focused on 2 of the core recommendations that came out of Health of the Nation. We published a report earlier this year, which was a follow-on report coming out of COVID called Leveling Up Health. If you follow the news at the moment, we've, leveling up is a big focus of the UK government. They want to close the gap in opportunities between the rich and poor. We have the north-south divide. We have all these big issues that we're dealing with at government level. But this is what is also starting to really hit home is how health is so connected to our wealth, and health is across all government departments. It is across all businesses. So one venture that we set up, which was a recommendation of Health of the Nation called Business for Health, is very, very focused on taking a steer from the climate change agenda, which we've seen, it's 10 years ahead of us, but what we've seen is a huge disinvestment from fossil fuel burning industries, coal. It's my note to stop. That 10 minutes is up. I'll finish in a minute. because I know I can go on forever. But you're taking a steer from that and saying, listen, we need to see the same thing in health. We need to see health being brought into ESG mandates. We need to see responsible investment by city institutions, pension funds, capital markets. We need to see money really going into that space, into industries that promote health, promote population health, but also reduce harm. So for example, industries like the food system, bad food, ultra high processed food, that's a massive drain on our health. We've got childhood obesity. Obesity is a massive, massive issue. Chronic diseases all linked together, clustering, these are massive, massive issues. So I think we have to be much more holistic in how we see longevity, aging, and also the opportunity and what we can, bring to bear to really tackle the problem at its source, so to speak, and the systemic changes that are needed.
Thank you, Tina, so much. I'm going to bring us back a little bit to just some of the key factors that you feel everybody, I think, is very, very interested in the APPG group, how it got started, some of its key factors for success. What are those lessons learned that we can bring back to the table as part of this conversation to get the engine started here potentially?
So the key factors for success, so I thought about this, and I think there is no doubt that having government committed to the mission is really important. You have to have that government commitment. And I think that's something that our US colleagues are really trying to push actually at the moment from a policy perspective, because that really sets the tone, it sets the ambition, and also sets the money, in terms of government investment, for example. So I think that was really, really important. Of course, we still have that in our government manifesto right now, even though the focus has changed because of COVID and obviously COP26 and clean energy. These are all, big things, the climate change agenda. But what we would say is that living longer is so connected with living greener. It's all interconnected anyway. So funding is obviously important. Obviously, government commitment that was important. And I think what we have seen as the biggest success, and the reason for our success, is being aligned around that mission and bringing many, many stakeholders around that goal, because you can't really argue with it. And we know that there are many vested interests. We know there are many silos. We know that there are many reasons why things can happen. But when you're focused around a mission and a goal, then that really, really helps. I think also, sheer, guts and bravery and courage and social entrepreneurship, just bringing people with you who are, wanting to do it. You have to find your pioneers, your leaders, and you have to club together and just get on with it. Because we've done everything with very little money and funding. Most of it has been through strategic partnering and collaborations. And I think also, but most importantly, and I think Franco and Kate spoke to this, but I think it's just being positive. I think, you have to have a positive view of living longer. I think we know that actually the biggest barrier in all of this is ageism. And that's one of the reasons why we don't actually use aging very much in our lingo anymore. We don't talk about, it's interesting because I see in all the government documents and coming up now, healthy aging is now moved to talking more about healthy longevity. So that's really quite interesting. And I think the whole lexicon is important because unfortunately, ageism is a real problem. And that is very much in the Westernized view. You don't have that problem in other countries where they venerate, age, but unfortunately in the Western world, we're not quite the same, and that's going to be a massive beast to tackle. And I just think you have to just keep on, reminding people, apart from the societal imperative, there's a massive commercial imperative. I mean, it's nuts that companies have been focusing, so much on the millennials when we've got, a market. When you add up all the plus 50s, as Kate said, you've got you've got the 7th largest continent, 3rd largest country in the world, however you want to slice and dice it. It is a massive commercial opportunity. So that alone should spur action. So, so these are all the reasons why I think.
Yes. Thank you so much. That's beautifully stated. Alex, as the host of this event, I want to pass the baton back to you a little bit. I'm happy to ask you questions, but knowing you, I think you've got lots of various different things you'd like to comment that would be on value to your audience. So I'm just going to open it up to you if you've got comments broadly that you would like to share with the participants at this juncture.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of the comments made by Franco, Kate, and Tina resonates with me and what's happening here in Canada. To build upon one of Tina's comments in terms of having government buy-in, that's really critical. And I think that is something that we really have lacked here in Canada in a consistent way, or their buy-in is on a different aspect of aging as opposed to the age tech sector, and really realizing that technology can play a role. And to be honest, I don't blame the government for that. I think as a field, as a sector, we need to take responsibility that perhaps we just not provide the evidence that's required to convince government that massive investment should be happening in the age tech sector moving forward. And that's something that we're also learning our way about and trying to work with our partners to understand. The other piece of that, though, is I think what we've done really well here in Canada in the past several years is also getting the buy-in from private sector. That we have partners like Best Buy, which is our big box electronics store here in Canada and the US, that is wanting to sell age tech products in their online marketplaces in their stores. That's a huge step forward for where we were 5 years ago, where it was very niche, very boutique kind of marketplace that people were in, and this not surviving. So the fact that we were convincing these large multinational companies that age tech is an area where they can make money, obviously, but more importantly have some social good, has been a really important aspect. And I think that's something we need to continue to move forward. The other aspect too, and maybe I'll stop with this comment and hand it back to you, Anne-Marie, for some questions and comments, is that it's also a very interesting line we're walking with respect to what exactly are age tech solutions. Are they medical devices? Are they consumer products? Should they be prescribed by doctors and occupational therapists? Or can anyone just walk into a Best Buy and go ahead and buy a robot that they're going to take home and unpackage and going to start to support them? Obviously, it has to be a mix of both, but it is also a very interesting question. And this comes down to the regulatory and policy landscape here in Canada, which is just figuring out its way as well in terms of what to do with these various technologies. And they're asking the questions of AgeWell, and we're helping them answer them. Things such as, well, again, is a smart home that's monitoring the health of an older person, or anyone for that matter, considered a medical device, and should it be classified by Health Canada as such? Or again, is it a consumer product that anyone should be able to access and buy? What the right answer is, I'm not sure, but I'd love to hear the thoughts of others on the panel or in our general audience.
Yeah. Thank you, Alex, very much. I don't know if anyone has comments to that last piece of what Alex has suggested. I'm going to say that, Alex, that's a very large question that in the couple of moments that we have left, I think we'll put on the side. I wanted to go to Kate to talk a little bit about what I call the emerging investor community. You highlighted, Alex, the need for private sector investment, the need for industry to wake up. I think, Tina, you're saying that more and more because of this consolidated mandate in the UK, industry has gotten on board. Would really like to understand what you're seeing, Kate, from a global perspective in terms of business getting on board with understanding this quote unquote new consumer.
Well, thank you for this question, Anne-Marie. Longevity industry is very complex. So I'm just going to scratch the surface here and kind of like outline the key trends. So it's very unequivocal that the United States definitely leads in terms of the size of investments in the space. In longevity space in general, it's not just age tech. So our definition is broader, as we've mentioned earlier. And I think United States is 256 billion versus Canada's 5 billion. So there's a big discrepancy. And again, I will repeat that Canada is number 3 in the world by virtue of having, the most longevity-focused companies. So this is obviously something that needs to be addressed. It can be addressed by, government strategy. We have in the past produced a report when we compared existing, still not perfect, government policies that focus on longevity and it's an open access. So I welcome everyone to do so. So there is definitely lots of potential in Canada. There are lots of US investors investing here and some Canadian as well, but I think it's important to bring additional investors as well as make the company environment even more welcoming by virtue of incubators like they often do in the United States on private level as a way of example. So there's lots of promise, but a lot more needs to be done because 5 billion versus 256 billion that is being done by United States, which is a neighbor, that I think speaks for itself. So.
Thank you so much. I'm being pinged by the organizers to suggest that we need to wrap it up now. So I'm going to close with a couple of conclusions. I love the statement that this is about life course, not age. It came up a couple of different times in each of your conversations. By putting demographic definition around this, I think we do ourselves a disfavor. We're looking at life course. Number two is that, and I'm going to quote Joseph Coughlin on this one, which is, aging is a powerful market driver. We must stop seeing this as an economic drain. This is a very affluent, influential audience that is now hitting the market, and there is a world of opportunity. As Tina, you outlined, aging is a very powerful market driver in the UK. And the final point I'll make is, Alex, we can lead with AgeTech. There's lots of work that needs to be done. There's lots of things that need to be done, but we've got a lot of we've got a strong reputation. We've got a lot of resource in this space, so we can lead. I realize that we've taken on such a large topic today, and we've, I think, just scratched the surface with a couple of drops, but I want to pass along thanks to you, Tina, for joining us today. Franco and Kate, I know we'll hear more from you. And Alex, thank you so much for presenting this week and for speaking today.